it really is a cool chance to speak with you today because I'm such a fan of yours and of the show. You know, I thought it might have happened around February when your show was starting, but I'm so glad that it's now because I've seen so much of the show and the way that it develops. And
Yeah.
it's really coming together in such a way that, I mean, even starting with last night's episode, I'm really eager to see where it goes.
Yeah, oh, that's lovely. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I'm so glad you have been able to see kind of the tone of the show and where we're going and what we've been doing. And I hope, yeah, I really hope last night got everyone feeling that, like, that gripped feeling of like, oh my gosh, where is this going to go? Because you know, there's only 3 episodes left of this season now, and it's getting real.
Mm-hmm.
Real.
So I wanted to kind of throw it back a little bit to your episode 5 in particular, because that was the one where I really felt like things kind of came to a head, getting to explore a lot of your earlier trauma, having, you know, Natalie Brown, who's such a great actress, plays such a fun role, or funny, I don't know if fun is the word, but such an interesting role.
We had fun. We had fun because it is a fun role because you get to play in the absurdity and the extremes, you know, but it's also very much grounded in character and story. So, you know, there was a solid ground there for her to work from, but she also got to like play in a crazy direction. And we from the get-go just got each other, you know. We would just say, I'm so glad you're the person I'm doing this with, because we were right up in each other's faces, and there's tubes going into mouths and screaming matches and grappling and little fights and things going on, and such a psychological you know, duel that was happening that yeah, it was, she was just so perfect for it in every way. And we came out the other side going like, we're friends forever. Like, we went through something together. Like, that was real, you know.
What's it like to shoot? I mean, episodes like that, scenes like that, and upcoming, I think you're going to get to fight a little bit as well too.
Yeah, I love the fight stuff. I love the action. I'm a very sporty girl. I have two big brothers. So I'm, you know, I'd always be keeping up with them, and I also love to challenge myself. So I'm like, if you tell me I can't do that or that's going to be hard, watch me do it, because I'm so determined. I have to like prove to myself that I can do this. So when it comes to the fight scenes and I can't spoil it, there's something coming up in 13 as well where I get to like really thrash around and fight. That I love that. That's so fun for me and a real outlet. In 5, however, it was so specific. It's like you're being defibrillated whilst you're still heavy under drugs, like, you know, that had her, you know, passed out essentially. But then all her trauma and her survival instincts are all switched on. So it's like, you know, it was really like just jumping off a cliff, because there are so many elements that I had to try and truthfully tie into this, that, you know, if I was too groggy, how could she be having this coherent conversation? But if I wasn't groggy enough, well, she just had her arm pumped full of drugs, like, and then she's being defibrillated. Well, that has to be severely painful, but at the same time, if it goes too far into the pain, she wouldn't be coherent enough to be able to, you know, because the adrenaline kicks in. So there were all these opposing kind of physical and psychological elements at play. So 5 was a real minefield for me, trying to pitch it in the right place. And I think that's where it really helps having a wonderful director. We had Chloe, who was sitting by the monitor going, you know, you can push that a little bit more and pull back on that, you know, it was really curating. And for me, I'm like, I've never been intubated before. I don't know what that feels like. And, you know, then there's COVID. So there's only so much we can actually do. And also, I don't want to be intubated like that. You know, I can't like act and talk all day. Like, that's a very like invasive, severe thing to happen. So we have to find ways to cheat it and act it and try and make it real. But with COVID, and so it was a very challenging episode, and every day everyone was in there just kind of going, all right, what can we do to make this work? And it was a very collaborative experience. It was very exploratory, and it was cool for me because a lot of it was my body, my physicality. I got to really get in there with suggestions and talking to props and figuring out with Natalie how we're going to make this work, and talking to our a medical advisor on set. Well, what would that feel like, and what would that be like, and how can I sell that while still having to tell the story? And one of the big things we wanted to really stay on the course with episode 5 was not to create this victim, not to create this screamy, whingy girl who not just to create this kind of horror trauma porn of like, let's see this young girl just be tortured and hurt and scream and cry and beg, and that's not Clarice Starling. That's not how we know and love Clarice Starling. We love Clarice's fortitude, her sense of survival, her strength in crisis, and the stillness that she finds there, and her sense of focus. But yet the Clarice that I'm bringing to life is also very triggered in her trauma, which we didn't really have to see in Silence of the Lambs. She's triggered when she goes into the basement, but I say that's one of the great triggers that awoke a lot of her past trauma, a lot of her childhood trauma. But now that's all there. Like the beast has been awoken now, and I'm carrying that into this series. So she has the trauma all sparking, but she's got to be overcoming the trauma whilst also overcoming the current danger that she's in, having to get out of that hospital and to survive. And this is what we love about Clarice, her incredible strength in crisis, her resilience, her how she thinks quickly on her feet or off her feet in that episode. She's paralyzed. But one of the things I was talking to the our wonderful producers about was just making sure it's all about survival. It's all about survival. I'm going to continue to survive. I'm going to overcome this. I'm going to overcome that. I'm going to quick think my way out of this. I'm going to talk my way out of that one. And, it was all about what's the next step, rather than just being like, oh, this is really crap. I'm going to scream and cry and carry on. And oh, it hurts. That's not Clarice. She's got to get on with it. And so that was really cool as well. Another challenge to put into it. She to be the woman victorious, to be the woman courageous, and to be the woman survivor, and yet have to show that these things are painful, have to show that she is very much under the spell of these drugs that she's been put on, that she is paralyzed from the waist down, that she is scared out of any, it's terrifying what she's going through, plus her trauma being triggered. So that all has to be there without her turning into this mess of like, just, this is so hard. She has to continue to rise above that. And I think that is a testament to her strength, that even with all that going on, that I had to show whilst not becoming a victim to it, whilst continuing to rise above it. So I felt like the whole episode, I had like dials and was like another degree of this and a little bit less of that. And what happened that take? I don't know, let's try something else this take. And just having to give so much trust over to our director and to our producers and to the network to curate it into an episode and put it together in a linear kind of story. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, but it was a mammoth episode and I learned a lot.
That was a fantastic answer, by the way, too.
Oh, good. Thanks.
I wanted to build off of your interview from Interview Magazine. I really, really enjoyed that interview itself, the feature. Particularly, there were two things that really interested me that you said about yourself in relation to the character. The first is that you have that sort of style of Clarice in which you enter a room and you're looking for order, or you're looking for clues, something within you about that. And the second one was that you are the number one on the show, that you're not, used to the Australian style where there sort of isn't, but it's so important in a show like this, that you do set the tone, and that I kind of don't trust a lot of the people that are around you, the supposed good guys. And the show seems to lean into that a little bit. So what do both of those things mean for you?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why Clarice feels so at home with me in my skin is that I am, she walks into a room and she wants to know the layout. It's like, when I get to a new city, I want to know what street leads there and where the map is, because once I understand it, once I have a grasp, I can then navigate it, in however I need to do to get through it. So I think for me, I'm an incredibly emotionally sensitive person. So I'll walk into a room and I'll assess the kind of energetic or emotional or subliminal landscape that's going on. because then I know how to navigate it. And I think that's what Clarice does. She walks into a room, but hers is more, I guess, it's very intuitive, but it's also, she's more trained than I am in like taking behavioral cues. That guy did this with his hand, he blinked twice. You know, that guy's sweating. You know, she takes in all of this information all the time and uses it. But, you know, she's taken this skill that she has and that she's been upskilled in, and then she's turned it into her career, which is to, you know, find and take down the predators, the bad guys, and, you know, make the world a safer place. I use my emotional intelligence in that I've gone into an industry where I find what I do is I'm using this thing that I have to be a service to the people as well, but it's through art and through, you know, being able to understand where my character is at emotionally and have that subliminal layer there, and understand and justify where that is coming from, so it feels authentic and truthful for me, but also put all the layers of human life on top of that, and then be in a scene and be feeling and taking, because you're always listening, but you're not just listening to what they're saying, you're listening to their tone, and you just like humans do, you know. So I guess I feel like that little dial is just turned up in me a little bit of like tuning into the interaction I have with humans, and I'm very affected by it. And that is great for my job, because the whole point is to listen and be affected, you know, and then what you give back, hopefully they're listening and then they're affected. And then that comes back to you and you take in new information, listen and affect it and give it back. So I think Clarice and I, in a very similar way, operate in a very similar way, and have both used our things in our careers. And so knowing that that's what I've done, it's very helpful for me in taking, I can very much understand where she is and where she's coming from. And it's very easy for me to live that authentically as well. Yeah. And to walk into a room and, you know, I'm sitting with Krenler at his desk and he's talking to me across the desk, but she's not just listening to him. She's going, okay, he tapped his pen twice and he's drinking this weird fluid. What's that about? You know, he then, you know, fell off the wagon and had a big night on the booze, or he's got a stomach ulcer. Well, is that too much stress? And why would he be stressed? Well, there's his family life, or is it the job? You know, like she's always taking the information that's informing not just what's being said directly, but what's being said outside of that, and taking all that information so that she's fully informed, so she has full context, and then she can navigate the landscape. And for her, it's always, you know, she's got to silence the lamb. She wants to stop the screaming. So it's how my whole life's purpose is to stop the screaming in every way, shape, and form that becomes available to me to be useful in that. So yeah, she's pretty.
What do you think about with Krenler for it? Your scenes with Michael are really interesting to me, because, you know, he's sort of like the direct superior, but you seem to have a lot on him as well. He doesn't seem fully trusting. He's the kind of actor too, which can sort of, he can switch his form really well. Mm-hmm. What do you feel like is to make of that dynamic?
Yeah, it's funny. We dance this incredible line with their relationship between having to have ultimate respect for authority, which is what she's trained in. That's FBI. It's also her upbringing, West Virginia, you know, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. You know, respect your elders and authority and know your place. And, you know, she grew up in orphanages. She's always had to, you know, mind her manners very, very much. And I love that respectful part of her. I think that's wonderful. But, you know, in the FBI, it doesn't, you know, if he's looking down on her or, you know, not taking her seriously, or he's got some personal prejudice because she got to Buffalo Bill first, or she's this little girl and he's like done his time and, you know, earned his strokes and lived his life. And, you know, he's here, and how, you know, how does she have the goal to come in and say this or do this? Or, you know, she runs a fine line between respect for authority, because that is the FBI and that's how it works, but also insubordination. Constantly, she's constantly not doing what she's told, whilst saying yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, you know. So it's kind of like she pretends to be this like really like heeds authority, but she doesn't at all. She's always going with her intuition, because for her the ultimate authority is her sense of justice. That is the ultimate authority. And sometimes that gets her into trouble, and it gets her into trouble a lot with Krenler, because he's the book. And the book works because the book is tried and tested and true. And there are reasons why we don't just go and chase down a lead at night without telling anyone, even though you think this is the next best step to like helping the women of the river murders. Doesn't matter. There's a protocol. Do the protocol, because it not only, you know, and at first she thinks that he's just coming down on her because he's, you know, he doesn't like her for what all the reasons that she could imagine why he doesn't like her. But what is wonderful about the relationship is as the series progresses, she realizes, oh, he's throwing the book at me not to, you know, lord it over me or to be superior. He's doing it because he actually wants to protect me, because he actually cares about the people in his team, and he believes that the protocols are there for a reason and to protect us. So he balances her out in that way, and I think over time he gains respect for her determination for justice. Her, you know, she'll do anything if it furthers the course of justice, even put herself on the line. And I think while he respects that, he's also trying to teach her that she is valuable, and she is a valuable agent, and she needs to actually take care of herself. And Marilyn Felker can't keep happening. Like, she's not going to keep getting out of Buffalo Bill's basement and Felker's psych ward. Like, it's not going to keep happening. Like, she has to include her team. She has to follow protocol. She has to start, you know, being sensible. But he also doesn't want to snuff out like intuition that he's starting to respect and go, wow, that's actually an asset. And she is, you know, I think Tripati's the first guy that comes around who's like, well, and Luca's character, Esquivel, where they're like, oh, she's actually onto something. She does have some kind of special sixth sense about this that we're not tuned into, or maybe we can learn something from her. And by the end of the series, I'm really excited for you know, episodes 12 and 13 for the relationship with Krenler and Clarice. It develops in a way that I didn't expect it to, but it becomes quite touching, I think. And I'm so glad that we started off having so much tension and just butting heads so much and being so angry and frustrated with how each other works. But at the end of the day, they're both after the same thing, and they've proven that to each other, and they realize there's actually a lot that they can learn from each other. And when they find that middle ground, I think they develop not only a trust, but a fondness. And, you know, especially in episode 8, when Krenlic, you know, invites them all to the basement, the bunker, and he kind of says, all right, here's the deal. I'm being blackmailed, and this is why. And if you're in this, you're in, but this isn't sanctioned. So if you're not, you're out and leave now. But if not, we're a team. And I think that's the first time in the series where she goes, oh, like I'm not just here because Ruth Martin placed me here to be the press pony, and I'm just going to do my own thing and make the best of this situation. But I am integrated into this in a capacity. She starts to let her guard down. And, you know, in episode 9, she's like, she punches Murray, you know, like a playful kind of like, stop it. And, you know, her personality is starting to come out. And this is wonderful because in the film and in the book, we know a lot of Clarice's personality because we're in her inner monologue and we hear her sense of humor, the jokes that she might have, all the things she notices in herself that she may not actually be able to say out loud because of the environment that she's in. But in the film, we don't have her inner monologue. We have secret moments with Ardelia where the asides start to come out with her like cheeky sense of humor, you know, all of that kind of happens. But in the series, it's great because we see her being the Clarice that we know and love from the movie. She turns up to the crime scene, she does the thing. Maybe not in the pilot, she's still like, she's out of sorts, you know, her confidence has been knocked and she, you know, the trauma has been awakened, but she finds that again, you know, she wakes back up and she comes back to being the woman in the field who reads it and gets it all, and she's taking it all in, and she's figuring it out in her special way. But we also get to see her personality. You know, we get to see her start to crack open a bit with this team that she's in, and become a part of a collective and be collaborative and have her voice heard, or learn something or hear something that she wasn't expecting to hear from one of them that kind of gives her hope. You know, I think when she kind of enters the FBI, she has written it off in a big way. You know, these are dudes that are all part of the dude club, and they're all going to do their by the book dude thing because it serves them. And I'm not a part of that. So because I know I'm not a part of it, I'm just going to do my own thing. And she just goes rogue. And she's like, I'm going to do this in my own way, and I'm going to be effective. And, but yeah, I think she starts to go, wait a minute, we are actually on the same page, and we can actually learn a lot from each other. And maybe there is some merit to this whole, like, maybe take someone with you when you're going to go chase down a lead.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe ask Esquivel to come, and don't just think you have to do it all by yourself. And I think it becomes a relief to go, I don't have to do everything by myself. But if you think about it, she was sent away when she was 9 to an orphanage, and then she went to the FBI, and she's shipped around. She's been on her own her whole life. So when you go, you idiot, why are you going and chasing down that lead? Well, Ardelia says it. She goes, she's always been a loner. She's only been able to rely on herself. Her own mother sent her away and didn't come for her. Her siblings didn't go with her. She doesn't have anyone. She's had to rely on herself. So becoming a part of a team and going, what do you mean I can run this by you? And you can come with me. And if I'm having a hard day, maybe I could tell you about it. And maybe you're having a hard day too,
One of the things you showed us so well that I've started to notice, it's like peeling the onion a little bit to reveal it, is that you look at it through the framework, you have the book, the movie, but you're really looking at the show and seeing it through a modern sensibility. A lot of the storylines that you're addressing, a lot of the issues, it seems like you very much address what's happening right now and looking at it through the prism of the past. How important is that to you?
It's incredibly important. We don't just, I think a lot of people that want to get into this industry, whether they want to write or be agents or whatever, we're all here because we know that art is powerful, and we all want to do something other than line our pockets and be told we're great. I'm sure for a lot of people, I mean, that's there too, great. But I think a lot of people are actors because they are kind of a little bit obsessed with humans and humanity. And you can't be obsessed with humans and humanity without observing them. And when you observe them, I think you see sometimes past cultural perceptions to the human, because you play the human, right? To play the human, you have to understand the human. To understand the human, you have to seek understanding. You have to go, well, why are you like that? And what made you tick? And what caused that to happen in you? And you literally have to walk in their shoes. And to have to walk in every character's shoes, whether or not you fully agree with them, you ask yourself, if I'd had that upbringing, if I'd had these set of circumstances, if I had that brain chemistry and those parents and those genetics and was brought up in this part of the world, who are you to say that you would be any different?
Mm-hmm.
So you start to go, everyone, I think most humans are genuinely good people trying to do their best. And every human deserves rights and deserves their right to live their best and most authentic life. And we address that a lot in the show with the racism, with the sexism, and even now with Jen Richards' storyline with having a transgender character and addressing the legacy of Buffalo Bill from the Silence of the Lambs, a terrible legacy, unfortunately, for the transgender community. So to be able to see outside of a misguided cultural perception or an outdated cultural perception and see a human, this is what we want. We want to see the human. To be able to play the human is another thing. You have the emotional experience, to play Clarice, having a life-changing emotional interaction with another human being that she gets to meet, that calls her to account for her silence, for in a sense being accidentally complicit to that bad legacy for the transgender community. You go through that and it affects you. And I can only hope that as the audience love Clarice or any of the characters and go on the journey with them, you are, in a way, there's an emotional tether between you, and it goes through the screen and out through the world, and pops out the television on the other side and grabs, plays little heartstrings of the audience watching. And I think that's a wonderful thing about what we do, because we want to spread, I'm being really altruistic here, but I think we want to spread love and understanding. We want you to know that like humans aren't all perfect and you may not all agree, but we're all humans. And so to be able to fall in love with Ardelia as a character and then go on her journey with her, you have an emotional tether to her. So you kind of get to walk in her shoes a little bit. You champion for her cause, and you see, you should have the exact same like right to that promotion or that opportunity. You earned it with your merit, and why aren't you getting it? That's not fair. And you start to feel it. It makes you angry. Well, Clarice, just because you're a young woman, you're small, you're young, why shouldn't you have, why should you be chastised for your achievement? Would a man be? And you start to see humans for humans rather than cultural misconceptions, I think. And I think that's what we're getting to do with this show. You come on the journey with the human, and then through that human story, hopefully you can have an emotional experience that can help you understand humans better, and not see kind of titles of what people are, but actually get to know a human and have an emotional experience and realize that we're all very similar. And I think it's been a wonderful part of the show to, and not in a perfect way, there are still people on the show that are very much stuck in their ways and will not see things from another point of view. And it's important to tell that story as well, and to go, well, what's their story? Why are they stuck in that? Or how can we seek to understand where they're coming from? It's all a big exploration into humanity, and to get to be a part of telling that story is really important. And we're not just here to like make a TV show. We get this amazing opportunity. Well, we want to use this opportunity to try and do something powerful and something that will help people and help make the world a better place. We're not just making a TV for TV's sake. We're making something to try and help humans to continue to humanity to move in the right direction.
I have to let you go soon. I want to ask you just quickly on the same point, the way you're describing your show and everything you've talked about has been so incredible. What have been those pieces of art, those shows, as an outsider, that have meant something to you?
You mean like films and TV that have affected me growing up?
Or recently?
Recently. Okay, this springs to mind. I rewatched The Imitation Game, and I had just the end of the film. If you haven't seen it, see it. I just sobbed. I just sobbed. I feel it now, even talking about it. Just how heroic Alan Turing was, and the end that he came to because of humans not willing to see the human, but instead were caught up in a doctrine. It broke me, and I sat there and sobbed for that story, but for all the people that have suffered. I think it's great. I think it's powerful to allow yourself to maybe capture a moment of some of the suffering that someone else has been through. And it's hard to feel suffering. And I think humans are instinctively all trying to avoid pain and seek pleasure. That's what we're all trying to do. But there was something so cathartic in it for me. And to really have just a minuscule feeling of what other people have gone through. And afterwards, I felt like we're going to do better. And I was inspired. So connecting to that moment of suffering through art, through that incredible film, through Benedict Cumberbatch's incredible performance and that true story, I was inspired, even though it was difficult. So, and I was also inspired to go, how can we maybe bring someone to the knees sobbing for the injustice but then be inspired to do something about it, and to love humans more, and to be inspired by what we're capable of. And I don't know. That's such a, I don't know why that like suddenly popped into my head, but I guess like in a recent capacity, that was an experience that I had watching something that I'd seen it before. It's not like it was a new thing. I just popped it back on one night and was so moved by it in a whole in a whole deeper way the second time I watched it. So yeah, I love what we do. I love that I get to be a part of this industry. And you know, every single day I go to set, I go, how can I grow as an actress today? And you can't grow as an actress without growing as a person. Like they're intertwined. You can't. So I love that I get to do this because I'm constantly being held accountable to my growth and opening and understanding as a person, because that's the only way I can continue to do that as an actress. And the more powerfully I can do that as an actress, well, the more Clarice will be brought to life, and it will be a powerful experience for everyone watching. It's something special that we get to be a part of, and I'm very grateful to be a part of it.
Leave it there. I want to say in conclusion, this was really, your answers and everything, really moving and fantastic. And it was such a pleasure hearing from you about the show.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you so much for your time. This is great.